Haen, do you have any idea how hard it is to find someone in Gangnam traffic, especially when you suddenly jump into the wrong car, look me straight in the eyes, and act like I'm the one who's mistaken instead of you? Minjin, you say that like you weren't sitting there in that shiny black sedan with your jaw clenched, looking at me as if I'd ruined your entire year just by brushing your sleeve and breathing the same air for 5 seconds. I wasn't angry. You startled me. I don't usually have strangers pulling open my passenger door, dropping their bag, apologizing in 3 different tones, and then whispering like I'm some dangerous man lurking in Seoul's night streets. Then maybe don't look so intimidating, especially when you're dressed like every CEO in Myeongdong who pretends he doesn't notice the world because he's too busy drowning in his own thoughts and expensive schedules. Haen, you're talking as if you didn't cling to the doorframe like a terrified trainee on her first day at a Korean office building, insisting the car looked exactly like the one your friend described, even though the license plate was clearly different. And you're talking like you didn't stare at me with that frozen expression for a whole 10 seconds before sighing dramatically, like I was some unpredictable storm blowing into your perfectly organized life. If I sighed, it's because you looked at me with those wide, trembling eyes and said, "Please don't kidnap me," which is the last thing I expected to hear after a 14-hour day of meetings across Seoul. I said that because you weren't saying anything, Menjin. You were just sitting there in silence, staring, and the city lights were reflecting off your glasses in a way that made me question all my life choices. You make it sound like I planned the lighting. I was simply trying to understand why a stranger with soft hair smelling like Hongdae coffee shops was collapsing into my car like fate pushed her. Don't talk about fate when you literally told me you should be more careful in that calm voice, as if I hadn't already embarrassed myself enough in the middle of a Gangnam valet lane full of impatient drivers. Because you almost tripped, Haen. I wasn't scolding you. I was worried. You grabbed my wrist so tightly, I thought you were trying to anchor yourself to Seoul itself before you fainted. I grabbed your wrist because the ground was uneven, and because you were getting out of the car too fast, and because everything felt like a blur under those neon lights and the sound of the Han River traffic nearby. You could have let go a little earlier, you know. My heartbeat hasn't settled since then, and your touch felt like something neither of us were prepared for. If my touch lingered, it's because you didn't move either, Minjin. You stood there, looking at me with that strangely gentle expression, like the world slowed down around your expensive watch. Maybe it did slow down. Or maybe you just showed up on a night when I'd forgotten what it felt like to be surprised by someone who wasn't part of my carefully controlled life. I didn't mean to surprise you. I didn't mean to step into your world at all. I was just trying to find my friend's car and go home before the Seoul rain started again. And yet here you are, still standing in front of me, still looking at me like you're not sure whether to run away or ask me something you've been hesitating to say. I'm standing here because you called my name just now, softly, like you wanted me to stay, even though we barely know each other, and everything tonight feels like a mistake that wasn't supposed to happen. Haen, I called your name because for some reason, when you turned to leave, it felt like something important was slipping out of my grasp before I even understood what it was. And that was the moment everything collapsed. If you're feeling this, subscribe for more stories. Seoul woke up slower than usual the next morning, wrapped in a soft haze that made Gangnam's glass buildings look gentler than they sounded. Haen stood at the bus stop, clutching a paper cup of Myeongdong Cafe coffee, replaying last night in her head like it was some strange scene she had wandered into by accident. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Minjin's expression. Calm, unreadable, touched by something he probably wouldn't admit even under interrogation. But she shouldn't be thinking about it. She had work. She had responsibilities. She had a life far away from black sedans and men who looked like trouble packaged in expensive suits. Still, her fingers tingled when she remembered grabbing his wrist. A bus rushed past, but she barely noticed. Seoul's morning chatter wrapped around her. People in suits walking fast, students laughing, delivery riders weaving through lanes, but her mind drifted to Minjun's voice, low and steady, calling her name like it carried weight. She shook her head and muttered, "Get a grip, Han. It was just one weird night."
But Fate in Seoul has a strange sense of humor. When she arrived at the small marketing office where she worked, her coworkers greeted her with sleepy nods, all except Jisoo, who practically threw herself over the desk. "You look like you saw a ghost on the Hongdae subway line," Jisoo said. "What happened? Tell me everything." "Nothing happened," Ha-eun whispered, hanging her bag. "I just got into the wrong car." Jisoo froze. "A taxi?" "No." "A rideshare?" "No." "Then what car?" Ha-eun closed her eyes. "A stranger's." Jisoo gasped like she was auditioning for a historical drama. "You, what?" "Shh!" Ha-eun slapped her hand over her friend's mouth. "It was an accident. I was tired. The valet lane was chaotic." "You could have been kidnapped." "I know." "And? Was he ugly? Or hot? Wait, don't tell me. If your silence is telling me what I think it's telling me?" "Jisoo, you met a hot guy, didn't you?" Ha-eun looked away, and that was all the confirmation Jisoo needed. "Oh my gosh, give me details, now!" But before she could answer, her team leader called for a morning briefing. She escaped into the meeting room like it was a lifeline. By noon, she thought she had successfully buried the whole incident under spreadsheets and client demands, but Seoul loves pushing people exactly where they don't expect to go. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Ha-eun." Her breath stopped. Minjun's voice was unmistakable, smooth, calm, slightly cool, but softer than the night before. How did you get my number?" she asked. "You left your bag in my car." What?" There was a quiet sigh on the other end. "You were flustered. It happens. I asked the valet if they remembered you, and your name tag was inside." Mortified didn't even begin to describe her. "Can I bring it to you?" he asked. "Or would you prefer to meet somewhere?" She swallowed. "You don't have to bring it. I can come get it." "No, I'm already near Gangnam Station. Tell me where you work." Her heart thumped. I don't want you to go out of your way." "It's not out of the way." "Are you always this persistent?" "Only when someone almost collapses into my passenger seat," he said, voice dipping low with something close to amusement. "And because I wanted to see you again." The last part was faint but real. She didn't know what to say. He cleared his throat. "Is there a quiet place near your office? Somewhere without too many people?" There was. The small coffee shop tucked behind the alley, the one with soft lights and a view of the back street. She told him, trying to sound casual. "All right," he said. "I'll be there in 10 minutes." When the call ended, Jisoo grabbed her shoulders like a detective interrogating a suspect. "Who was that? Who is he?" Ha-eun whispered. "The guy from the car." Jisoo screamed into her hands. Minutes later, Ha-eun slipped out of the office, heart pounding. The afternoon sun dipped low, casting golden light over the narrow Gangnam street. The coffee shop door chimed softly as she stepped inside. She scanned the room. And there he was. Minjun looked different in daylight, still sharp, still impossibly composed, but somehow less distant. He stood when he saw her, holding her small black bag in one hand. "You came," he said quietly. "You called," she replied. A slow breath left him, almost like relief. "This is yours." She reached for the bag, their fingers brushing for a moment that felt far too long. "Thank you," she murmured. "Sit with me for a moment?" he asked. "I won't take long. I just wanted to ask something." She hesitated, then sat across from him as the soft hum of the cafe wrapped around them. He looked at her carefully, as if searching for the right words. "Last night," he began, "when you held my wrist, did it mean anything to you?" Her breath caught. The world seemed to quiet. He leaned slightly closer. "Because," he said softly, "I haven't been able to forget it." A barista dropped a cup behind them, shattering the moment. Ha-eun blanked. Minjun waited. And the space between them suddenly felt like a beginning neither of them knew how to name. But before she could answer, her phone lit up with a call that made her face drain of color. He noticed instantly. "Is something wrong?" The name on the screen flashed again, someone she never expected to call at this moment. She whispered, I have to take this." She stood, heart pounding, and walked outside into the alley. The voice on the other end changed everything. and as Min Jun watched her freeze under the fading sunlight, he felt something tighten in his chest. The wind shifted. Seoul held its breath. A new storm was about to begin. The alley behind the cafe was quieter than the main street, shaded by the tall buildings that framed Gangnam in soft evening tones. Ha-eun pressed her phone to her ear, her breath trembling as the voice on the other end repeated itself. Ha-eun, can you hear me? It was Hyunsu, her older brother, the brother who almost never called, the brother whose voice usually meant something was wrong. Yes, I'm here, she managed. What's going on? He hesitated, and she felt the weight of it more than the words themselves. Appa's condition got worse. Her heart dropped. Now? Why didn't you tell me earlier? He didn't want you to worry during the work week, Hyunsu said gently. But the doctor suggested we come in today. They need to run another set of tests. Ha-eun closed her eyes. The city hummed around her, cars rushing past the main road, footsteps echoing on the pavement, the faint sound of soft cafe music drifting into the alley. But all she could hear was her heartbeat pounding painfully. Okay, she whispered. I'll come as soon as I can. I'll leave now. Don't rush, just hurry safely. The call ended, but the wait stayed. She exhaled shakily, running a hand through her hair. Her father's illness had been quiet, lingering, something she didn't mention much, something she hoped would get better on its own, something she pretended wasn't as serious as the doctors suggested. But reality never stays silent for long. When she turned back toward the cafe, she found Min Jun standing near the door, watching her with a concern that felt too intimate for two people who barely knew each other. He stepped closer. You look pale. What happened? She swallowed, trying to steady herself. My father, he's not well. I need to go to the hospital. His eyes softened instantly. Which one? Seoul National University Hospital. Without hesitation, he said, I'll take you. No, she said quickly. You don't have to. It's far, and I already caused you enough trouble. He shook his head. This isn't trouble. Min Jun, really? Ha-eun. His voice was gentle but firm. You shouldn't go alone when you're shaking like that. She looked down at her hands. They were trembling. He took a small step closer, close enough that the city noise faded behind him. Let me help. Just this once. She didn't trust herself to speak. Instead, she nodded. They walked to his car in silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else. Something fragile. Something that made her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. Inside the car, the soft glow of the dashboard lit his profile, and she found herself staring at the calm way he drove, the way his hands rested on the steering wheel, steady and controlled. He glanced at her briefly. You don't have to talk. Just breathe. She let out a shaky breath. The city rushed past, Seoul's lights blurring into streaks of gold and white as they crossed the bridge over the Han River. For a moment, she let the motion soothe her. After a while, he asked quietly, Is it serious? She hesitated. I don't know. It's been up and down for months. I keep pretending everything is fine, but today, it doesn't feel fine. He didn't offer empty comfort. He didn't say it would be okay. He simply said, I'm here. Whatever you need. Those words landed deeper than she expected. When they reached the hospital, she unbuckled quickly. You don't have to come inside. Thank you for the ride. But Min Jun opened his door too. I'll walk with you. Min Jun, you're already trying to hold everything alone, he said softly. At least let someone stand next to you. She didn't realize how badly she needed that until the moment she accepted it. Inside the hospital lobby, the fluorescent lights hit cold and bright. People hurried through hallways. Doctors spoke in low tones. Machines beeped rhythmically. Ha-eun spotted Hyunsu pacing near the elevator. Appa, she called. He turned, relief flooding his expression. Ha-eun, you got here fast. Then he noticed the man behind her. Min Jun bowed politely. Hyunsu raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. They followed Hyunsu to the consultation room where their father was speaking with a doctor. Ha-eun pressed her palm to the glass quietly, watching her father's tired eyes, the slow way he nodded.
There's fluid building again, Hyunsu murmured. They need to drain it. Ha-eun's throat tightened. I thought he was getting better. Me too. Min-jun stayed a respectful distance behind them, silent, but his presence grounded her in a way she didn't expect. After a long conversation with the doctor, their father was taken in for the procedure. The three of them waited in the hallway. Minutes stretched painfully. Ha-eun sat on the edge of the plastic chair, her fingers twisting together. Min-jun crouched slightly to meet her eyes. Hey, he said softly, look at me for a second. She looked up.
You're not alone, okay? Her chest tightened. Why are you being so kind to me? He hesitated, then answered honestly. Because when you walked into my life by mistake, I thought you were chaos, but now I think you might be the one thing that shakes me in a way I needed. Her breath caught. Before she could respond, the doctor stepped into the hallway. Ha-eun shot to her feet. Is he okay? The doctor offered a small, tired smile. The procedure went well. He just needs rest. Relief washed over her so hard she nearly swayed. She exhaled shakily, covering her face with her hands. Min-jun placed a steady hand on her back. Hyunsu excused himself to call their aunt, leaving the two of them alone in the quiet hallway. She lowered her hand slowly, meeting Min-jun's eyes. Thank you for being here. He shook his head. Thank you for letting me. For a moment, the world felt still. The hospital lights softened. Their breathing matched. Something unnamed hovered between them. But then Ha-en's phone buzzed again. She glanced down, and everything froze. A message from someone she thought she'd never hear from again. Someone who had broken her once. Her past had found her, and it wasn't gentle. The moment shattered, and the night tilted again. The message blinked on her phone screen, the white hospital lights reflecting off the glass. One name she had hoped would stay buried under everything she rebuilt. Jae-won. Her breath hitched. The world around her blurred. The nurses walking by, the soft hum of machines, the faint antiseptic scent in the hallway. All of it felt distant. Min-jun noticed immediately. Who is it? She locked the screen too fast. No one. Her voice was sharp, too defensive. He straightened slightly, eyes searching her face. Hein, something's wrong. Tell me. But she shook her head, slipping the phone into her pocket like it was something dangerous. It's nothing, really. The lie sat heavy in her chest. She stood abruptly. I should see Appa now that he's resting. Before he could say more, she walked toward her father's room. Her steps wavered, but she forced herself to keep moving. Min-jun followed quietly, not pushing further. Inside the dim hospital room, her father lay sleeping, his breathing steadier now. The beeping of the monitor gave the space a slow rhythm. Ha-en sat beside him, holding his hand gently. Min-jun stayed near the doorway, respectful and silent, watching her, understanding more than she wanted him to. And yet, she felt his presence like a steady warmth behind her, grounding her in the middle of her spinning thoughts. After a few minutes, Hyunso returned and spoke softly. He'll sleep for a while. We should let him rest. Ha-en nodded, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Min-jun caught her gaze. I can take you home, he offered. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't dare look. She whispered, I need air, and quickly slipped out of the room. Min-jun hesitated only a second before following. They stepped into the quiet outdoor terrace of the hospital, where the city lights shimmered beyond the railing. The cold wind swept across her face, but the tension in her chest didn't ease. She leaned on the metal railing, staring at the distant glow of Seoul's skyline. This day keeps getting worse. Then let me help carry some of it, Min-jun said gently. She almost laughed, but it came out broken. You can't. Not this part. Try me. Silence hung between them, stretching thin. She closed her eyes. It's someone I used to know. Someone who didn't end things well. A boyfriend? He asked quietly. She nodded once, barely. He stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough that she felt shielded from the cold. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to, but you don't have to hide it either. A shaky breath left her. She didn't know why his kindness hurt as much as it soothed. I thought I was past it. I thought I moved on. And now? Now I feel like I'm right back where I started. He didn't speak, letting her find her own words. He left, she whispered, without explanation, without closure. Just disappeared one day like I was something he forgot to pack. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. I begged for a reason. I begged for anything. But he didn't even look back. Minjin's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice soft. And today he texts you? A single message, she said bitterly. After 2 years. What did it say? Her throat tightened. Just, can we talk? Nothing else. Minjin exhaled slowly, the tension leaving him in a controlled breath. People like that think they can reappear whenever life feels convenient for them. She swallowed hard. I don't want him back. I just don't want the past to ruin everything now. He studied her face carefully. Everything like today? She hesitated. Like meeting you. The words slipped out before she could stop them.
Minjun froze. His eyes softened in a way she hadn't seen before, less guarded, more exposed, like she had touched something he kept tightly locked. "Ha-eun," he said quietly, "you're not ruining anything." The wind swept her hair across her cheek. He reached forward slowly, as if giving her time to pull away, and gently brushed it back. Her heart stuttered. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. "Good," he said, voice deeper, "because I'm trying very hard not to cross a line unless you tell me it's okay." Her breath caught. "Minjun." He stepped back slightly, forcing himself to keep distance. "I won't push you, but I'm not going anywhere unless you ask me to." Her chest tightened at the sincerity in his voice. Before she could respond, the terrace door swung open. Hyunsoo stepped out, looking between them with raised eyebrows. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "Appa woke up and wants to see you for a minute." Ha-eun nodded quickly, grateful and flustered. "I'm coming." Minjun moved aside to let her pass. Their shoulders brushed, sending a soft jolt through her. Inside the room, her father's voice was weak but warm. "Ha-euna, who is the young man with you?" She froze. "Just someone who helped me today." Her father smiled faintly. "He looks like someone who doesn't leave when things get difficult." Her throat tightened. "Appa." He squeezed her hand gently. "Don't let the past steal the future. Not again." The words landed heavy. Later, as she walked Minjun to the elevator, she felt the weight of everything pressing in from all sides. "Thank you," she said softly, "for staying, for not asking too much." He looked at her for a long moment. "I'll wait, Ha-eun, whatever you need. Just don't disappear on me." Her heart twisted. When the elevator doors closed between them, her phone buzzed again. Another message, this one worse. "I'm in Seoul. I need to see you. Tonight." The air around her stilled. She whispered into the empty hallway. "No, not now." But fate never listens, and the night was only getting darker. Night settled over Seoul with a heaviness that felt personal. The hospital's glass walls reflected the city lights, streaks of gold and blue stretching over the quiet parking lot. Ha-eun stood outside the main entrance, staring at her phone as if the words themselves were knives. "I'm in Seoul. I need to see you. Tonight." Jaewon's message pulsed on her screen, each vibration echoing in her chest like a warning she couldn't ignore. She turned off the screen quickly, as though that would somehow erase him from reality. But the past never lets go that easily. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breathing. The cold air pressed against her cheeks, and for a moment she considered deleting the message, blocking the number, pretending none of it existed. But the truth sat heavy inside her. He wasn't someone who vanished quietly. Not then, not now. Footsteps approached behind her. "Ha-eun?" It was Hyunsoo, eyes filled with quiet concern. "You okay? You rushed out so fast." She forced a small smile. "Yeah, just needed air." "You sure?" He eyed her phone. "You look like you saw something you didn't want to see." Her throat tightened. "It's nothing, really." He didn't believe her, but he let it go. "I'll stay with Appa tonight. You should rest. Go home."
She hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said softly. "You look exhausted." She nodded, stepping forward to hug him tightly. Her brother held her with the kind of strength only family could give. "Call me if anything changes." "I will." As she left the hospital, the quietness of the night pressed close. Streetlights glowed softly along the sidewalk, and the distant noise of cars hummed like a low, restless heartbeat. She didn't get far before she saw him. Min Jun leaned against his black sedan near the curb, hands in his pockets, tie slightly loosened. His expression eased when he saw her walking toward him, but worry still lingered in the lines of his face. "You didn't leave," she breathed. "I told you," he said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." Her chest tightened unexpectedly. He walked toward her slowly, as if afraid a sudden movement might make her run. "How's your father?" he asked. "He's stable for now," she said, exhaling. "Thank you again for staying. You really didn't have to wait." He tilted his head slightly. "I wanted to." A gust of wind blew past them, carrying the faint scent of rain and distant street food carts. She shivered without meaning to. Immediately, Min Jun shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She froze. "You don't have to. You're cold," he said simply. Her heart felt too full, too conflicted. "Let me take you home," he added softly. She hesitated. Not because she didn't want him to, but because she wasn't sure if she deserved this kind of gentleness while her past was clawing back to life. Still, she nodded.
As they drove through the night streets of Seoul, the warm, quiet interior of the car felt almost unreal. The city lights blurred past them. Hongdae's Myeon signs, the dark stretch of the Han River, the soft glow of apartment towers rising like constellations. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Min Jun broke the silence. Earlier, the message, was it really nothing? She tightened her grip around his jacket wrapped around her. "I didn't want to burden you with it. You're not a burden." His voice was steady, too steady. She looked out the window, watching raindrops begin to dot the glass. "It was someone I used to date." He didn't react at first. His jaw tightened just slightly, his fingers flexing on the steering wheel. "I see," he said quietly. "And he wants to talk?" "Yes." "Do you want to see him?" "No," she said instantly. Too instantly. He looked at her then, really looked. "Then why are you shaking?" She hadn't realized she was until he said it. She forced her hand still. "Because I don't want this to pull me back into something I barely escaped." "Did he hurt you?" The question was soft but sharp, like he was afraid of the answer. Ha-eun swallowed. "Not in the way people usually mean, but he made me feel small. He made me feel like nothing I gave was enough." Min Jun exhaled slowly, a controlled breath that trembled just at the end. "Then you don't owe him anything now." "I know, but part of me still wonders why he left. That part, it's weak." "It's human," he corrected gently. "And you're allowed to have questions. You just don't have to face them alone." Her chest ached with something warm and painful all at once. They turned into her neighborhood, in a quiet corner near the Han River. He parked the car by the curb, the streets softened by warm yellow street lamps and the distant hum of the water. She unclipped her seatbelt slowly. "Thank you for today. For everything." He shook his head. "You don't have to thank me for caring." She felt the words settle deep inside her. As she reached for the door, he spoke again, lower, almost hesitant. "Ha-eun, if he tries to come back into your life just to shake your peace, you won't face him alone. Not unless you want to." She turned toward him, heart unsteady. "Why are you doing this?" He held her gaze, honest and steady. "Because I want to know you. Not the pieces life broke, not the past that hurt you. I want to know you." Her breath caught. Something inside her softened and cracked at the same time. He reached out slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "But I'll only go as far as you let me." She swallowed hard, leaning ever so slightly into his hand before catching herself. "Good night, Min Jun." She smiled faintly. "Good night, Ha-eun." She stepped out of the car,
only to freeze halfway to her building. Because someone stood there, in the shadows near her apartment entrance, tall, familiar, waiting. Her phone buzzed. "I'm here." Her heart dropped. Jae-won lifted his gaze, and their eyes met. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Behind her, inside the car, Min-jun watched her stiffen, watched her stop breathing for a moment, watched her world shift again. He opened his door in one sharp motion. The quiet night cracked open, and nothing would stay gentle anymore. The night felt too still, too sharp, like Seoul itself was holding its breath. Ha-eun stood frozen on the sidewalk, the faint hum of the Han River somewhere behind her, and the glow of her apartment entrance casting long shadows across the pavement. Jae-won stepped out of those shadows slowly, older, colder, wearing that same controlled expression she once mistook for warmth. His eyes swept over her with a familiarity that made her stomach twist. "Ha-eun," he said, voice steady, too steady. "You got my messages." She couldn't speak. Her throat closed the way it always did around ghosts she thought she'd buried. Behind her, the quiet click of Min-jun's car door cut the silence. He walked toward her with calm, deliberate steps. No anger, no rushing, just presence, strong enough to make the air shift. Jae-won's gaze flicked to him. Who is he? Ha-eun swallowed hard. "Jae-won, you shouldn't be here." That didn't answer my question. "I don't owe you an answer," she said, surprising herself with the sharpness in her tone. Jae-won's jaw tightened. Min-jun stopped beside her, positioning himself just slightly forward, not blocking her, but shielding her in a way that made her knees weaken. "Is everything all right?" he asked her, his eyes never leaving hers. She nodded, though it felt shaky. "I'm fine." Jae-won scoffed softly. "You don't look fine. You look scared." "Enough," she whispered. He stepped closer. "We need to talk." "No," she said instantly. "We really don't." Min-jun finally looked at Jae-won, calm but firm. She said no. Jae-won's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to decide what she needs?" "I'm not deciding anything," Min-jun replied.
"But I'm listening to her. You should try it." The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tightly. But before anything more could erupt, an Ajusi from the building walked past dragging a recycling cart, scattering the moment. Ha-eun took the tiny distraction to step back, breathing hard. "Let's go inside," Min-jun murmured to her. "You don't have to talk to him here." But Jae-won reached out, too fast. His hand didn't touch her, but it came close enough for the memory of old wounds to flare. "Don't," she whispered, stepping back sharply. Jae-won froze, startled at her recoil. "Ha-eun," Min-jun's voice dropped lower, "you need to give her space." "It's not your place," Jae-won snapped. "No," Min-jun said, "it's hers." The way he said it, quiet but unshakable, made something inside her break open. For a long moment, no one moved. Finally, Jae-won exhaled harshly. "Fine, I'll back off, for tonight." He looked at her, his voice low. "But we're not done." "I am," she said softly. His eyes hardened, but he didn't argue. He turned and walked away down the dim street, disappearing into the night like he'd appeared, suddenly, leaving a storm behind. Only when he was gone did Ha-eun realize she was shaking. Min-jun turned to her immediately. "Come on, let's get you inside." She hesitated. "I'm sorry, you shouldn't have gotten involved." He shook his head. "You don't apologize for someone else's choices." Her breath hitched at the firmness in his voice. They walked inside the building lobby, lit with warm, golden lamps that made the entire space feel softer. Still, she couldn't slow her heartbeat. She pressed her back against the elevator wall as they rode up, arms crossed tightly against her chest. Min-jun watched her quietly. "You don't have to talk about it, but don't hold everything alone." She blinked, tears burning behind her eyes. "Why do you care so much?" He didn't look away. "Because the moment I saw your face outside, I realized I never want to see you look that scared again." Her breath trembled. The elevator doors opened to her hallway.
They stepped out, walking slowly toward her apartment. "Do you want me to stay until you feel safer?" he asked. She hesitated, a long, painful hesitation. "I don't want to trouble you." "You're not trouble," he said softly. "You've never been trouble." Her walls broke without warning. Tears spilled before she could stop them. She pressed a hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking. Min-jun stepped forward carefully. "Ha-eun, I hate that he can still make me feel small," she whispered between breaths. "I hate that I froze. I hate that it all came back so fast." He placed his hands lightly on her shoulders, grounding her. "What he did to you is not your fault. Freezing isn't weakness, it's memory." Her knees nearly buckled. He steadied her instantly, his arms warm and unwavering. "Just breathe," he murmured. She leaned her forehead against his chest, letting the tears fall silently. His hand came up to gently cradle the back of her head, his touch careful, respectful, tender. "I'm here," he whispered. After a long moment, she pulled back, wiping her face. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "You don't apologize for being human," he said quietly. Her breath shuddered. He looked at her door. "Go inside, lock it, text me when you're safe." She nodded. As she unlocked her door, she turned back one last time. "Min-jun, thank you." His gaze softened. "Good night, Ha-eun." She stepped in, closed the door, locked it. But the second she leaned against it, her phone vibrated again. A new message. "If you won't talk to me, I'll come back. You owe me that much." Her breath caught. The night pressed in again. She slid down the door, heart pounding, whispering into the dark. "This isn't over." And somewhere outside, in the quiet hallway, Min-jun stood with his fist clenched, because he felt it too. The storm was only beginning. Dawn crept into Seoul timidly, brushing pale gold across the Han River and over the quiet apartment blocks. But inside Ha-eun's place, there was no sense of mourning. Only the cold, lingering echo of the message she couldn't unread. "You owe me that much." She hadn't slept, not even a minute. Every small sound in the hallway made her flinch. Every shadow on the wall felt like a threat. By the time her alarm rang, she was already dressed, hair tied back, eyes dark with exhaustion. She splashed water on her face, trying to erase the shakiness in her reflection, but nothing softened it. She checked the hallway twice before leaving. The air felt too still, too tense. When she finally stepped outside, her phone buzzed again. A message from Min-jun. "Did you sleep? If you didn't, tell me. I'm outside." Her breath caught. She hurried to the window, and there he was. Leaning against his car in the morning light, hair slightly messy, suit jacket off, sleeves pushed up, looking nothing like a CEO, and everything like someone who stayed up worrying. She felt something warm and painful tighten in her chest. When she walked downstairs, he straightened immediately. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. She didn't even try to deny it. "No." "Did he send anything else?" She hesitated. "Yes." His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "Show me later. For now, let me take you to work." "You don't have to." "I know," he cut in gently. "I want to." She exhaled shakily and nodded. Inside the car, the silence wasn't heavy, just quiet, careful. Seoul was waking up around them. The flow of early commuters, the smell of street tteokbokki drifting through alleyways, the sound of subway announcements echoing in the distance. Halfway to the office, she spoke, voice small. "I didn't think he'd come back." Min-jun glanced at her. "People like him come back when they feel you've healed without them. It bruises their pride." Her fingers clenched around her bag. "I'm not afraid of him. I just hate the feeling. Like I'm being dragged backward." "You're not," he said quietly. "You walked away once. You can walk away again." "But why do I still shake?" "Because trauma isn't logical," he whispered. Her breath trembled. When they arrived at her office building, he parked but didn't turn off the engine. "Do you want me to wait until you go in?" She nodded. He watched until she disappeared inside, not leaving until she texted him a simple, safe. Inside the office, everything felt too bright, too normal for the storm churning inside her. Jisoo noticed immediately. Whoa, you look like you fought the Seoul subway system with your bare hands. I'm fine, Ha-eun muttered. Jisoo crossed her arms. That is absolutely what someone who is not fine would say. But before she could push further, the team leader called for an emergency client meeting. Ha-eun buried herself in work, thankful for the distraction. Yet her mind kept flickering, back to last night, to the fear tightening her spine, to Minjeon's steady voice grounding her. By lunchtime, she stepped outside for a breath of air. Her phone buzzed. She flinched, but it wasn't him. It was Minjeon. I'm nearby. Are you eating? She looked up instinctively and froze. He was across the street, leaning against the railing near the small convenience store, holding 2 warm coffees. Her chest warmed instantly. She crossed to him, and he handed her one. You look less pale, he said. I'm trying. You're doing well. They walked slowly down the alley behind her building, the afternoon sun painting soft shadows on the pavement. For a moment it felt peaceful. Ha-eun, he said, stopping gently. About last night. I couldn't stop thinking about your face, the fear in it. I don't ever want to see you feel that alone again. She swallowed. Minjeon, you barely know me. He shook his head. I know enough, and I want to know more. Her steps faltered. But before anything could settle, before any fragile warmth could take root, her phone buzzed again. She froze. The world narrowed. She didn't want to look, but she did. We need to talk. I'm not leaving Seoul until we do. If I have to come to your work, I will. Her breath stopped. Minjeon saw her hands trembling and gently took the phone from her. When he read the message, something darkened behind his eyes. Controlled anger, quiet but fierce. That's not a request, he said. It's pressure. I know, she whispered. He's crossing lines. I know. He exhaled slowly. Ha-eun, you don't have to deal with this alone. Her voice cracked. What if he actually comes here? Then I'll be here, Minjeon said instantly. You can't shadow my whole life. I'm not shadowing, he said quietly. I'm standing with you. There's a difference. She stared at him, overwhelmed. The alley was quiet, the breeze soft, the world slowing enough to let the moment breathe. Minjeon, she whispered, voice trembling. I'm scared. He stepped closer, slowly, giving her space. His hand hovered near her cheek, but didn't touch. Then let me be someone you can lean on. Her eyes watered. His voice softened, almost breaking. I'll go at your pace, but please, don't push me away just because someone else hurt you. The words unraveled something inside her. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed from the main street. Too fast, too familiar. Ha-eun stiffened. Minjeon noticed immediately and turned his head. Just in time to see Jaewon stepping into the alley. He had followed her. And this time, he wasn't hiding in shadows. The air cracked, sharp and cold. Ha-eun, Jaewon said, breathless. We need to talk, now. Minjeon stepped in front of her, eye steady, voice low. This ends today. And everything inside her trembled, because she knew he was right, and because the real confrontation had finally begun. The alley felt suddenly narrower, the sunlight thinning, as if Seoul itself sensed the tension coiling in the air.
Ha-eun's breath caught in her throat the moment Jaewon stopped a few steps away, too close, too familiar, too unwelcome. Minjeon positioned himself just slightly ahead of her, not touching, not imposing, but unmistakably protective. His voice came low, steady. You followed her. Jaewon ignored him, eyes fixed on Ha-eun. We need to talk, alone. She shook her head immediately. No. We aren't done, Ha-eun. We are, she whispered. Minjeon's jaw flexed. You heard her. Jaewon's eyes hardened. Stay out of this. You don't know anything about me, about us. I know she said no, Minjeon answered. That's enough. For a moment, the world felt ready to crack.
Delivery scooters zipped by at the alley entrance, but no sound seemed to reach them. Only breathing, sharp and uneven. Jaewon took a step closer. I'm not leaving until she explains why she blocked me. Ha-eun flinched. I blocked you because you disappeared. Jaewon's expression flickered. Anger, disbelief, something messy underneath. I left because I needed time to figure things out. I told you I was struggling. No, she said, voice trembling. You didn't tell me anything. You just left, and I spent months wondering if I wasn't enough. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You broke me and walked away as if my heart wasn't something you were holding. Jaewon's breath hitched, and for a second, guilt crossed his face. But ego burned over it quickly. That doesn't mean I stopped caring. Minjin let out a quiet, cold breath. Care doesn't look like this. Jaewon glared at him. I wasn't talking to you. And I'm not asking permission to speak, Minjin replied calmly. I'm here because she doesn't feel safe. So let's be very clear. This conversation happens only if she wants it to. His words fell like a silent strike. Ha-eun stared at the ground for a moment, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the world. She hated the fear twisting inside her, the old hurt resurfacing like a bruise she never allowed to heal. Slowly, she stepped forward, not toward Jaewon, but beside Minjin. Not touching him, but choosing the space that felt safe. Her voice was soft but unshaking. I don't want to talk to you. Not now, maybe not ever. Jaewon's face fell. Anger first, then confusion, then something desperate. Ha-eun, you loved me. I loved who I thought you were, she whispered. Not the man who left me and showed up 2 years later demanding answers. He blanked, stunned. Minjin watched her quietly, pride and worry mixed in his eyes. Jaewon stepped back, breathing shakily. I came to make things right. You can't fix something you shattered on purpose. His lips parted, but nothing came out. A silence settled between them, tense and suffocating. Finally, Jaewon spoke again, voice cracking. So that's it? You won't even hear me out? She swallowed hard. Hearing you out won't change the past, and it won't change who I am now. He looked at her the way someone looks at a door being closed, slowly, painfully. Then his gaze flicked to Minjin. You think he's better than me? No, she said softly. He's simply not you. Jaewon froze. The hurt in his eyes twisted into something sharp and defensive. Fine, if that's what you want. It is. He clenched his fists once, twice, and finally stepped back. But before turning away, he said something that tightened the air between them again. You're making a mistake, Ha-eun. People like me don't vanish forever. Minjin's voice dropped, low and lethal in its calm. And people like me don't run. The stare they exchanged was brief but crushing. Jaewon finally walked away, swallowed by the crowd near the main street, until he became just another face in Seoul's endless rush. The second he disappeared, Ha-eun's knees weakened. Minjin reached out, not grabbing, not pulling, just offering. An anchor she didn't know she needed. She took a shaky breath. That was harder than I thought. He nodded slightly. But you did it. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Why does it still hurt? Because you cared once, he said softly. Healing doesn't erase history. She closed her eyes tightly. I feel like my insides are shaking. Then lean for a moment, he murmured. She hesitated, just a heartbeat. Then she let herself, just a little. Her shoulder brushed his arm. His warmth flooded through her like a slow exhale. She wasn't collapsing, she wasn't breaking, she was just resting. Minjin didn't move, afraid even a breath would make her pull away. After a long moment, she straightened, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm trying. You don't have to try alone. Her chest tightened. Why are you being so patient with me? He looked at her, eyes soft but intense. Because I'm already in too deep. Her breath hitched. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed again. She froze, heart leaping into her throat. But it wasn't Jaewon. It was the hospital, her father. Her breath collapsed in on itself. She pressed the screen with trembling fingers and blanched. Her father had taken a sudden downturn. "They need me," she whispered, voice cracking. Min-jun didn't hesitate for even a second. "Let's go," he said. "I'm driving." And just like that, the fragile moment shattered again. As they hurried out of the alley, Ha-eun felt fate tightening its grip, pulling her towards something she wasn't ready for. A new fear, a new truth, and another cliff waiting just ahead. The drive to the hospital felt different this time, faster, heavier. The city blurring in streaks of headlights and rain-streaked glass. Min-jun didn't say anything, but his grip on the steering wheel told her everything. He was worried, deeply. Ha-eun's fingers trembled in her lap. She pressed them together until her knuckles turned pale. "Please be okay, please," she whispered under her breath. Min-jun glanced at her, voice steady but low. "He'll be all right. Hold on to that, okay? Don't jump to the worst yet." She nodded, but her chest wasn't obeying. It was tight, shallow, like it was folding in on itself. When they pulled up to the hospital entrance, she barely waited for the car to stop before pushing the door open. Min-jun parked quickly and followed, matching her pace exactly. Not grabbing her, not guiding her, just staying close enough that she felt him there. Inside, the bright lights of Seoul National University Hospital felt harsher than usual. The smell of disinfectant cut through the air, and the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the hallways. She spotted Hyun-soo near the nurse's station, his hands and his hair pacing. "Appa," she called. He spun around, relief and fear tangling in his expression. "Ha-eun, you got here fast." "What happened?" "They said his breathing got shallow, something about fluid building again and his blood pressure dropping." His voice cracked. "They're running tests now." Her heart sank. "I thought he was stable." "So did I." He rubbed the back of his neck. "But this morning he seemed tired. I thought it was just lack of sleep." Min-jun stood quietly beside them, watching, absorbing, present. A doctor approached, and the siblings turned instantly. "How is he?" Ha-eun asked, voice trembling. The doctor pulled off his mask. "He's stable now. We're monitoring him closely. He experienced an unexpected dip in blood pressure, but we intervened quickly." She exhaled, knees weakening. "Can we see him?" "Only one at a time," the doctor said. "He's awake, but still very tired." "I'll go," she whispered. Hyun-soo nodded, squeezing her shoulder. "I'll wait here." Before she entered, she looked back at Min-jun. He nodded once, giving her a soft, steady look that grounded her. Inside the room, the lights were dimmed. Her father lay on the bed, breathing slowly. His eyes fluttered open when he heard her steps. "Ha-euna," he whispered, voice weak but warm. She hurried to his side, taking his hand gently. "Appa, you scared me." He gave a tired smile. "I told the doctor I had no plans to go anywhere yet." Her eyes stung. "Don't joke like that." "Sorry," he murmured. "I didn't want you to worry." "I'll always worry," she whispered. "You're my father." He squeezed her hand weakly. "You're strong, you know. Stronger than you think." She swallowed hard. "I don't feel strong." "You are," he said, "especially now." His eyes followed something behind her. "Is that the young man?" he asked. She stiffened, glancing back. Through the small window in the door, she could see Min-jun standing quietly in the hallway, talking softly with a nurse, hands in his pockets, posture calm and patient. "Yes," she whispered, "that's him." Her father smiled faintly. "He looks steady." "He is." "Does he care for you?" Her eyes softened. "I think he does." "And do you?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Not yet. Her father chuckled softly despite the pain. "Your silence is louder than words." She lowered her head. "Appa." He reached up, touching her cheek. "Don't be afraid to let someone stay." A tear slipped down her face before she could stop it. "I'll try," she whispered. "Good," he murmured. "Now go. Let me rest. And tell that young man to stop pacing like he owns the hallway." She smiled through tears. "He's not pacing." "He will be," her father chuckled. She kissed his forehead gently. "I'll be right outside." When she stepped out, she found Min-jun just where she expected, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning her face before she even reached him. "He's okay?" he asked. She nodded. For now. Relief washed gently over his expression, subtle but real. Good. They walked toward the waiting area together. She sat down heavily on the bench, shoulders slumping. After a moment, he sat next to her, close, but not too close. "You're shaking again," he said softly. "I'm just tired and scared, and everything feels like too much."
He hesitated for a moment, then slowly reached out, palm open, offering, not demanding. "Can I?" he asked quietly. She looked at his hand, then at him, and she placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, gentle, steady in a way that made her chest ache. "Breathe," he whispered. She did. For the first time in hours, she actually could. They sat like that in silence, hands intertwined, the hum of the hospital around them. After a few minutes, Min-jun spoke again. "You didn't eat anything, did you?" She shook her head. "I couldn't. I'll get you something warm." "You don't have to." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know I don't. I want to." Her breath stuttered, soft but telling. He stood slowly, letting go of her hand, but only after making sure she was steady. "I'll be back in 5 minutes," he said. She watched him walk toward the elevator, tall, calm, unwavering. And for a moment, she let herself feel the fragile safety he brought. But just as she exhaled, her phone buzzed. Not a message, a call, from an unknown number. Her stomach twisted. She answered with a trembling hand. "Hello?" A low voice came through the line. "Ha-eun, we're not done. You can't ignore me." Her blood ran cold. It was Jaewon, inside the hospital. She shot to her feet, heart pounding. "Where are you?" she whispered, panic rising like a storm. "I'm closer than you think," he said. The call ended. The hallway suddenly felt too quiet, too still, dangerously still. And far down the corridor, a shadow moved, watching her. She stepped back, breath stolen from her chest. And somewhere in the elevator, unaware, Min-jun was already on his way back. The storm had followed her into the one place she thought she was safe, and it wasn't done yet. The corridor outside her father's room suddenly felt colder, the fluorescent lights flickering faintly, as if echoing her panic. Ha-eun pressed her back against the wall, her breath shallow, her pulse racing, loud enough to drown out the hospital's quiet hum. He was here, inside the same building. Her eyes scanned the hallway, the nurse's station, the cluster of chairs, the shadow near the vending machines. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Her voice cracked out of her before she could hold it back. "No, no, no, no." She took one shaky step backward, then another, and that's when she saw it. A figure shifting behind the corner near the ICU doors. Tall, familiar posture, watching. Her stomach twisted painfully. "Not here," she whispered. "Not now." The elevator chimed behind her. She whipped around and nearly collapsed with relief. Min-jun stepped out, holding a warm paper bag and 2 cups. But the moment his eyes met hers, everything in him sharpened. He rushed to her. "Ha-eun, what happened?" She could barely speak. He called me. He said he's here." Min-jun's eyes hardened instantly, the calm slipping into a controlled storm. "Where?" She pointed with a trembling hand. "There, near the ICU doors." But when he turned, the shadow was gone. The corridor was empty. Only the soft beeping of machines and the distant murmur of nurses filled the air. Ha-eun felt her knees weaken. "I know I saw him. I know he was right there." "I believe you," Min-jun said firmly, stepping closer. Her breath hitched. "I can't do this. Not here. This is the one place I should have been safe." He put the food down on the bench and gently cupped her shoulders, grounding her with his presence. "Look at me." She did, eyes wide and wet. "You are safe," he said. "I'm here. You're not alone in this." Her lips trembled. "But
If he follows me everywhere, then he'll answer for it. His voice was low, but the promise inside it was unmistakable. She tried to steady her breathing, leaning her forehead against his chest for one fragile second. He held the back of her head gently, careful not to overwhelm her. "We should tell security," he murmured. "No," she whispered, pulling back. "That will only make him angrier. I know him, Minjun. When he feels cornered, he doesn't react well." Minjun's jaw tightened. "People like him don't get to dictate your safety." "But if he sees us together," she said softly, "he could make things worse." The admission stung in her chest. He stared at her, eyes softening, voice dropping. "I don't care if he sees us together." Her breath caught. His hand brushed her cheek, tender and slow. "I'm more worried about what this is doing to you." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his touch ground her trembling. "You shouldn't have to protect me." "I'm not protecting you," he said. "I'm standing with you." Something inside her nearly broke open. But before she could respond, a nurse hurried toward them. "Family of Ha Sing-ho?" Ha-eun's heart dropped. "That's us. Your father wants to see you." She nodded instantly. "I'll go." The nurse left, and she turned back to Minjun, suddenly afraid to move without him. He noticed.
"I'll be right here," he said gently, "not going anywhere." She hesitated, longer than she meant to. Then she whispered, "Stay close." "I will." She turned and hurried toward her father's room, her heart pounding, her mind full of shadows. She pushed open the door gently. "Appa?" Her father looked pale but awake, his eyes softening when he saw her. "Sit," he whispered. She sat at the edge of the bed, trying to smile. "You look scared," he said. She exhaled shakily. "It's nothing you need to worry about." He watched her carefully. "Is it that boy from before?" She froze. He chuckled weakly. "Your face says yes. Appa. You can't outrun the past, but you don't have to let it chase you forever." She swallowed. "It's not that simple." "It never is," he murmured. "But good people don't leave when things get complicated." Her throat tightened. "I don't want to bring trouble into someone else's life." "Maybe he's not someone else anymore." Her breath hitched. Before she could answer, a knock sounded at the door. She turned, expecting a nurse, but instead, it was Hyunsu, breathless, startled. "Han," he whispered urgently, "someone's asking for you outside." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" "I don't know, but he said your name, and he didn't look calm." Her father's grip tightened on her hand. "Stay here," he said firmly. "Let your brother check." But Ha-eun stood, shaking her head. "If I hide, it'll only get worse." Hyunsu frowned. "Then at least let me go with you." She nodded. They stepped into the hallway, tension thick in the air. Nurses moved around them, machines beeped, but everything felt distant. They walked slowly toward the waiting area. Hyunsu whispered, "Are you sure you want to?" But the moment they turned the corner, she didn't need to answer, because Jaewon was standing there, right in the middle of the waiting room, breathing hard, eyes locked on her. And next to him, standing like a wall between danger and her, was Minjun. His expression calm, his body still, but his eyes were a storm. "Han," Jaewon said, voice cracking with something close to desperation. "You're scaring her," Minjun said softly, dangerously calm. Jaewon's gaze flicked between them. "You think you know her?" he snapped. "You think you can walk in and replace everything we were?" Minjun didn't flinch. "She doesn't belong to you. But she belonged with me. Until you left her," Minjun replied, voice steady as stone. Jaewon took a shaky step forward. "Haon, tell me you're not choosing him over me." Her breath stilled. The room went silent. Hyunsu shifted protectively closer. And Minjun didn't take his eyes off her, waiting, not pushing, letting her choose. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She opened her mouth, but a sudden alarm blared down the hallway. Rapid footsteps, panicked voices, nurses rushing, and someone shouted, "Room 312, code blue!" Her father's room.
Her world dropped out from under her. Everything else, Jaewon, Minjun, fear, choices, vanished in an instant. She ran. She didn't look back. The hallway spun around Haeun as she sprinted toward room 312, the alarm's shrill cry slicing through the hospital air. Nurses rushed past her, pushing crash carts, calling for equipment, their voices trembling with urgency. "No, no, Appa!" she choked, stumbling forward. Her hands slammed against the doorframe, just as two nurses closed the curtain around her father's bed. A doctor spotted her and stepped in front of her immediately. "Miss, you need to wait outside." "That's my father," she cried, trying to push past him. Hyunsu pulled her back before she could collapse into the room. "Han, you can't go in. Let them work." She shook her head, tears already blurring the lights. "He was fine. He was talking. He told me to be strong. He can't. Han, Hyunsu whispered, voice shaking. "Please." Behind the curtain, monitors beeped frantically. Commands echoed through the air. "Preparing epinephrine. Clear. Pulse check. Again, clear." The sound burned into her. Her vision swam, her knees gave out, and suddenly, Minjun was there, catching her before she hit the floor. He lowered her gently to a chair, kneeling in front of her, hands gripping hers with a strength she didn't know she needed until she felt it. "Breathe," he whispered. "Han, look at me. Just breathe." Her voice cracked like glass. "He can't die. He can't." Minjun squeezed her hands, his own voice trembling at the edges. "He's fighting. Let them help him." Hyunsu stood beside them, staring through the small gap in the curtain, tears streaming silently down his face. For what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the world held it still. Clear. Again. Then, a long, awful silence. Han's heart stopped. The curtain shifted. The doctor stepped out. One look at his face, and her world buckled. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "No, don't say it." The doctor lowered his gaze. "We did everything we could." Her breath shattered. "We're very sorry." For a moment, she didn't hear anything. No alarms, no voices, no breathing. Just a deafening silence as the world caved in, crushing her chest. Her father was gone. Gone. She collapsed forward, a raw, broken sound ripping from her throat. Hyunsu wrapped his arms around her, sinking with her as she sobbed uncontrollably. "No! Appa! Appa, please!" Her cries echoed through the hallway, too painful, too human. Minjun stood beside them, frozen with helpless grief, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles whitened. He wanted to hold her, to take even a sliver of her pain. But this grief belonged to her family. He waited until she reached for him. Her hand, shaking violently, searched blindly for something to anchor her. He caught it instantly. She pulled him close and collapsed into him, sobbing into his chest, her body trembling with a pain that tore something open inside him as well. He wrapped his arms around her slowly, carefully, protectively, his voice cracking as he whispered against her hair. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Just let it out. I've got you." Hyunsu wiped his face, trying to steady himself, but he sagged into the wall, devastated. When the doctor quietly asked if they wanted a moment with their father, Haeun nodded, even though her legs barely held her. Minjun supported her as they walked inside. The machines were silent now, the room dim. Her father lay peacefully, a soft blanket pulled up to his chest. She approached him with small, broken steps. "Appa," she whispered, touching his hand, still warm, still familiar. "You said you weren't going anywhere." Her tears fell onto his skin. "You lied! You lied to me!" She bent down, pressing her forehead to his hand, grief pouring out of her in waves that shook her whole body. Minjun stood at the foot of the bed, eyes lowered, trying not to break at the sight of her breaking. When she finally straightened, her voice was barely a breath. "What do I do now?" Hyunsu stepped beside her. "We'll get through it, together."
Her voice cracked. "I'm so scared, Oppa." "I know," he whispered. She turned, slowly, shakingly, toward Minjin. His eyes were already glistening, though he blinked the tears back quickly. He stepped closer. "You don't have to be strong right now. Just feel it. I'll hold the rest." She broke again, falling into him. This time, he held her tighter, one hand on her back, the other cradling her head. The three of them stood there, in the quiet, in the sorrow, in the finality of goodbye. But grief has its own timing. Hours later, after paperwork, condolences, and unbearable stillness, the siblings walked out of the room. Ha'un's eyes were swollen, her body drained. But just outside the door, in the waiting room, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, face tense, Jaewon was still there. He saw her. His expression fell. "Ha'un," he whispered, voice softening at her devastated state. "I heard the code blue. Is he?" Her breath caught, sharp and wounded. She turned away instantly. But Jaewon took a step forward. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. Minjin moved faster than him, stepping between them, voice low and steady. "Not now." Jaewon froze. "Not here," Minjin added, eyes dark with warning. "And not her." For once, Jaewon understood enough to stay still. Ha'un clutched her brother's arm, her voice fragile. "Oppa, I want to go home." Hyunsu nodded and led her forward. Minjin followed closely, silently, protectively. And behind them, in the lonely hospital hallway, Jaewon watched her go, realizing far too late that in trying to reclaim what he lost, he had arrived on the worst night of her life. And nothing he said now could change the shape of her grief. But fate wasn't done yet. Tomorrow would bring choices that could break her all over again. The morning after felt unreal, too bright, too still, too quiet for a world that had just broken apart. Seoul moved as it always did. Cars rumbling across Gangnam's early streets, shopkeepers sweeping their storefronts, the Han River glimmering under cold sunlight. But for Ha'un, every sound was muted, every color drained. She sat on the edge of her small couch, wrapped in a blanket, hands limp in her lap. The apartment felt unfamiliar, like someone else's life. Grief pressed against her chest in slow, unbearable waves. A soft knock startled her. She hesitated, then opened the door. Minjin stood there, hair slightly messy, eyes tired from a sleepless night. He held a paper bag in one hand and 2 warm drinks in the other. He didn't speak at first. He simply looked at her, really looked, and his expression softened into something heartbreakingly gentle. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. She stepped aside. He entered slowly, placing the food on the table. The silence between them was soft, not awkward, not empty. Just 2 people standing inside a moment too big for words. Finally, he said, "You didn't answer my texts. I got worried." She nodded faintly. "I saw them. I just didn't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Her throat tightened. He sat across from her on the low-floor table, keeping space between them, but close enough that she felt his presence anchoring her to the room. "How's Hyunsu?" he asked gently. "He's handling arrangements," she said, voice small. "He told me to rest, but I can't sleep, can't think. Everything feels like—" She swallowed hard. "Like the world slipped out from under me." Minjun nodded slowly. "Losing a parent feels like that. Like the ground moves, but no one else notices." Her eyes welled. "I don't know how to breathe without him." "You breathe 1 second at a time," he whispered. "And when you can't, someone sits with you until you can." Her lips trembled. "I keep thinking, I should have stayed longer with him last night. I should have said more. I should have—" "Don't do that," he said softly. "Don't punish yourself for a moment you couldn't control." She blinked hard, tears spilling. "I feel so lost." His voice broke a little. "Then be lost. I'll walk beside you until you find yourself again." That made her cry harder.
She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, hands covering her face. I hate this. I hate feeling this small. He hesitated, then gently reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek with the back of his finger. Small doesn't mean weak, he murmured, not with what you're carrying. She held his gaze, drowning in grief and something else, something new, something warm, something terrifying. Why are you doing this for me? She whispered. Because I care. His voice was soft but sure, and because you don't deserve to grieve alone. Silence settled between them again, but it didn't hurt this time. It held them. She exhaled shakily. And Jaewon? He won't bother you today, Minjun said. Hyunsu spoke with security, and I told him myself that if he comes anywhere near you, he'll deal with me. She swallowed. Was he angry? Yes, Minjun admitted, but he left. She nodded slowly. I don't have the strength for him. Not now. Maybe not ever. You don't owe him strength, he said quietly. You owe yourself peace. Those words sank deep, deeper than she expected. She wiped her face with trembling hands. Minjun, she whispered, I don't know how to let someone in right now. I feel like everything inside me is cracked. He leaned closer, just a little. Then let me sit with you in the cracks. I'm not asking for anything more. Her breath trembled. He continued, voice low. I don't want to rush you. I don't want to replace anything or anyone. I just want to stay, for however long you'll let me. The sincerity nearly unraveled her. She looked down at her shaking hands. Then slowly, timidly, she reached across the small space between them. Her fingers touched his. A simple touch, but it felt like the beginning of something fragile and real. Minjun closed his hand around her very gently, as if she were something precious, breakable, and important. She whispered, barely audible, Please don't go. I won't. A tear slipped down her cheek, but this one felt different, less heavy, less alone. He shifted closer, not embracing her, not overwhelming her, just sitting beside her, shoulder close to hers, sharing the breath between them. For the first time since last night, she felt air fill her lungs without pain. Hours later, when Hyunsu called with funeral details, she answered with Minjun still beside her, their hands still loosely intertwined. And as the sun dipped behind Seoul's skyline, casting warm light over her quiet apartment, she leaned gently onto his shoulder, not because she was collapsing, but because she was letting herself rest. And Minjun exhaled softly, letting the weight of her trust settle into him. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, she began, just barely, to heal. And somewhere far away, watching the world through bitterness and regret, Jaewon realized he had lost her in a way he could never repair. But that was for tomorrow. For now, in the soft hush of Seoul's evening, Ha-in let herself breathe again, in the safety of someone who didn't leave. And the story of what they could become began quietly, in the tender silence of shared grief. It's time to finish this. If this story pulled you in, follow for more K-drama worlds, and come back tomorrow for another chapter of emotions.